Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Destination Big Leagues. In today's episode, I've got Kieth Mawhood. I met Keith on the AAA Incubator Discord. Uh, Basically, if you don't know what the AAA Incubator Discord was, it was basic. Well, it is. It is a community of like-minded people who want to capitalize on AI, run AI agencies. So, I met quite a lot of interesting people, and Keith happened to be one of them. He is currently the community manager of that Discord. There's about 35,000 people approximately. And I've had some really interesting conversations with him. And I thought that it would be interesting to get him onto the platform. So, hopefully you guys find our conversation interesting and can gain some insight into just like the whole AI landscape. So, Keith, thank you so much for coming to the platform. Um, so maybe, I guess I know you've gone through a lot of different roles. Maybe if you can kind of just run through, how you're currently doing your current role and, what all you did before kind of getting into kind of AI.
Sure, sure. So, and like with a lot of folks, the last year, last couple of years, you've seen a lot of attention kind of growing with AI, and naturally that's brought my interest level up with it. This year, obviously, this past about calendar year, so 2023 in specific, it's really got an explosion in activity, and that drew me into just keeping up on research and trying to find various kind of content and media. And through all that, I ended up stumbling across Liam Motley's channel, and ultimately the AAA incubator community that he kind of founded. And so through becoming more involved in there and trying to share wisdom and help kind of coach and teach people, who are entering their entrepreneurship journeys, I ended up getting into helping run the place a little bit. And before that, I have a pretty varied background in IT. I kind of started being encouraged by my family when I was in elementary, middle school, getting into kind of coding and hardware hacking stuff like that. Fundamental circuits, fundamental programs, things of that nature, and did some kind of volunteering in that way and helping out in middle school, high school, and then ultimately I got into a couple different career paths, I suppose you could say, starting with more electrical engineering, more formally taught there, and then kind of segueing over into general kind of IT work, and a lot of that involved um, a myriad of different things, but ultimately leading up to a number of business endeavors and a number of different specialities, and kind of resulting in me at this point having the kind of free time and capacity to put a lot of effort back into community building, and that's kind of what I've been focusing on this year some, and definitely appreciating having the chance to dive into with the AAA folks there.
Right. So, we kind of mentioned AAA. It basically stands for AI automation agencies. I guess people following kind of the AI space, who've probably gone through YouTube and, gone through multiple blogs and stuff, have probably come across this word called AAA. Maybe can you just unravel what just AAA means? Like, what does it encapsulate? And
Sure.
then after that, maybe go through kind of what the opportunity is within the AAA space.
Sure, sure. So AAA, AI automation agency, it's one of those terms that kind of works on a few different levels there. It essentially is highly informative, but also kind of excellent marketing in its own kind of way, right? So the phrase came about from Liam trying to find a good way to describe what he was getting into and what he saw as a way to kind of focus and hone in on services and offers and things of that nature. So essentially, it is a subset of of IT, right? So if you think of it this way, you have business automation, right? You have IT, which is again a subset of business automation, truly in its sense, and then a subset of that you have AI automation agency, which is basically a company that focuses on providing AI powered automation solutions, right? AI powered pretty much anything having to do with code and tech to various clients. The various clients part, agency automation is just a lot of what it does, and the AI part. Just to work through this backwards, the AI part is simply how it's all kind of powered uniquely this year. That's the kind of special sauce that makes it 2023 and not 2022. Is that we have so many more ways to kind of power these different solutions. So an AAA agency or an AA company focuses on that kind of niche there. Did that
Right.
answer good for you?
Yep. I mean, I think that was a good enough answer. So, so it is AI, right? Like, tell me who is the sort of targeted audience, who can potentially set up an AI agency? What are the prerequisites required for someone to kind of run these sort of agencies?
Sure. So amazingly, it seems to be the kind of thing that at least throughout this year, and this is perhaps a closing window of high leverage opportunity here, where you can enter with relatively little experience, start earning some money with some basic deliveries, and then use that to kind of snowball your ability to learn and get experience, but then also to expand the kind of company there. So that is a huge challenge. That being said, so just because we're seeing folks do it doesn't mean that it's going to necessarily last forever in that kind of high leverage way, or that it's necessarily easy to do. Entrepreneurship is its own challenge. Running teams, running people is its own challenge. Managing with clients. I mean, you're kind of stacking a whole lot of challenges. So it's interesting because you are seeing a lot of folks hitting the ground running in some ways with very little experience or exposure. Vast majority of folks, though, are seeing it as a really high leverage opportunity to kind of sidestep with some existing skills into entrepreneurship. That's where the word agency, I think, is a genius choice because some of the folks that seem to be able to capitalize on this are already doing social media marketing agencies, which has been a really big kind of trend on the internet. And so that kind of buzz and keyword association has helped a lot of those folks step over some of their existing business experience and trying to offer AI powered solutions around their kind of media marketing and their lead gen and things of that nature. So it's interesting because I'm just touching on the kind of the very kind of low code, no code kind of aspects. Really, it goes all the way up to custom dev solutions. I mean, there's folks who are delivering rather large kind of custom projects, and that's still all in AAA as well. Interestingly enough.
Right. So yeah, I mean, I think I've dipped my feet in kind of the AI automation space. It's quite interesting. You meet a lot of variety of people, from all sorts of backgrounds. You don't necessarily have to be a coder at a FANG, or you don't even have to have a
Yeah.
CX experience. You could have marketing, you can have sales experience, find people on the community, and potentially run something. You know, one of the things that you mentioned was, the opportunity in terms of running an AI agency could potentially be short-lived, especially that in the space of, generative AI and AI, things are so dynamic. You know, things keep evolving. I know people in the agency started using WordPress. Everyone moved to voice flow, and these sort of iterations are so rapid. And then the tools get so much better. Like, clients don't necessarily have to hire an agency to kind of build them. Uh, I guess, like, maybe what would you do, if you were someone young? Would you say, like, okay, try to set up an agency, or like just focus on kind
Mm.
of building your own idea, like, you know what would your suggestion be?
Well, it's tough. It's tough because there's a whole bunch of things you have to learn at once, and you may or may not have any kind of head start already, depending on your exact background, how long you've been even working. Even if you just worked as an employee for a couple of years in an industry, that gives you a bunch of inherent experience. That can really help you kind of jumpstart. So I'm hesitant to try to encourage people without any kind of experience at all. I will note that some folks are able to find some success that way, but I think a lot of folks are going to be better off trying to team up with people. That might be a more practical way to kind of enter if you don't have any kind of experience or exposure to things in general. But you realize that, hey, this AI thing is a little bit of a gold rush of the current age, and maybe I should try to get in on that, right? So if you're in that kind of a position, it might make sense to just try to find work kind of in the industry. It's a big broad category. Long term, long term. So I keep looking at myself and look at the camera more. Long term, it's not going to go away, right? What's going to go away is this kind of easy on ramp on the low end of things, the low code, no code, because those things will be automated and polished up and extracted and kind of bundled into other services like what we're seeing now, where you're going to have what's a good example? Shopify is releasing some language model powered bot solutions and some assistance in that way. And so there's other platforms as well. But as these enter the market, you'll have the shift of the work and services will change because you can't really compete with these huge companies. What you need to do is try to operate in the voids that they leave behind, the things that they can't quite cater to, and that's really what this year has been. Has been a void. Or as a small entity, we're able to much more nimbly enter a market and compete and adapt services and offers, whereas these big companies have a lag just because it takes so much time for them to get kind of going. I'll note though, you know, let's pick on some big ones. OpenAI has obviously been one of the big leaders in the space, but we have seen Google drop their Gemini announcement and releasing that platform. And so, as you can see, yeah, maybe it took a year. Maybe they have another year before they actually get caught up. I haven't played with Gemini too much. I can't say for sure. But at some point, these things always kind of equalize. More players get in the field, and you have this difference between the startup phase of an industry and kind of the main life cycle there. And so we're definitely in the startup phase where you still have a lot of these kind of high leverage opportunities that you could potentially use with less experience, just because we don't have these big companies kind of offering them in a super convenient way. So the happy medium between custom dev and pre-done by a big company is going to be like a AAA agency kind of in the middle there, bridging that gap between these two kind of common options we see is get established in market.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that a lot of the large companies are kind of focused on sort of running and building their foundational models. They haven't really kind of deep dived into use cases. So I think the opportunity is coming up, finding an industry, finding a niche, and then leveraging AI and delivering use cases. I think that's the opportunity. And I think the best part about running an agency is it's low hanging fruit. There's not a real investment. Even if you can't monetize and make money off of it, the knowledge gain and the access to community that you build while interacting and rubbing shoulders across people trying to run these agencies is invaluable. If you're in high school or if you're in university or even if you're in your professional career, you might potentially meet a co-founder where you can build a product down the line. There's a lot of immense value that comes apart from sort of a monetary benefit. But kind of just talking about the monetary benefit side of things of running an AI automation agency, what is the metric of success? Like I mentioned, there's about 30,000 people in the AAA incubator Discord, which is quite significant. There's high amount of activity. What have you seen in terms of the high end of success? People coming in doing success, and what have you seen? On the lower side of things.
Okay, that's a great question. So kind of the full range. Well, not the full range. There's a little bit of a cap on some of the higher end stuff, but it's still emerging. I would frame it this way: a couple $100 US or less, project costs or monthly recurring revenue on the low end. So really, truly like a side hustle for a lot of folks. They can pick it up with some part time. They can get some extra paychecks worth of money, or depending on currency exchange being what it is, a lot of folks are able to really kind of earn many paychecks with a smaller delivery based on the compared to the larger IT market. So the high end though is where it gets interesting because you have a lot going on between maybe 0 and 20,000, 0 15,000 somewhere around there. But you also have a chunk of projects that I've seen falling into two categories that get much larger, six figures and up. So it's going to be either like a multi-phase, multi-stage, big cost over time kind of thing, but signed in one deal, or it's going to be an actual, it's a bigger chunk, a bigger uh, um, initial kind of immediate project cost. I think I described that very odd. What I mean is, sometimes you break something big into a long period of time. Sometimes you don't. You just tackle it right away. So that's all I'm differentiating between there. I've seen both of those get up, six figures and up. I don't think I know of any seven-figure deals for sure yet, but I know there are folks who are talking about things like that, and I'm not sure how eager they necessarily would be to with a payday like that to run to the wins channel per se. I think if you're making if you're making some moves bigger like that, I may not know all the high end for sure, just because folks tend to keep that a little bit closely guarded, understandably. But that's definitely the
Right.
range I can confirm so far.
Right. So, what is someone
Did I lose you?
uh del-
Oh,
no,
okay.
yeah. So, what is someone kind of delivering who's offering services for a couple of $100 versus someone who's offering services for $100,000?
Sure. So a lot of it will be the classic scale and size of the company you're dealing with. If they're dealing with more volume, if they have more locations, something of that nature, that'll be a big differentiator. But just in terms of complexity, you have some more uh, kind of public facing deliveries, which tend to be a little of the simpler, simpler to learn, simpler to sell, simpler to actually implement and integrate. These would be things like any kind of conversational automation, any kind of conversational bot as we call it, that would be interacting with the public on various platforms. Could be Instagram, it could be WhatsApp. It doesn't really matter too much. Even some customer support solutions I would put in that category too, where if you don't have to deal with integrating into internal company systems too much anyway, you don't have to deal with privileged data, you don't have to deal with regulations. These are usually more on the lower end of these kind of single niche focused deliveries. So it gets more complicated when you start to integrate and tie in more to existing systems, whether you are touching regulated or privileged data, or whether you're just integrating to more dots inside of a customer's internal workflow. For example, let's say they have an internal communications platform. Let's say they have Slack and they're already using it to talk, or not. Maybe you onboard them onto Slack. That kind of internal process overhaul is going to be usually a much bigger ticket item, because that's a lot of business consulting. It's a lot of talking and communicating and planning, and not just getting the engineering aspect planned out, but also getting people to be on board with it, right? If you have a great idea and a great process, but people don't understand it, they don't believe it, they don't do it, that's tough. So you have to actually have the communication layer on top of that, which is a chunk of the labor. So those tend to be bigger ticket uh, uh, things in general, is because of the amount of work and the amount of nuance involved with it. Just to give a couple
Right.
examples.
Yeah, no, I think those are some pretty good examples. See, I think the interesting things are the lower ticket stuff, right? Like, the Instagram chatbot, the WhatsApp chatbots, those are kind of quite interesting, right? Because
Yeah.
I think with Instagram chatbots, if you're selling products and stuff like that, the ROI basis can be quite tremendous. If you have a successful chatbot, like, let's just run through an example, right? Like, for example, you're selling some product on Instagram, right? Let's say you're selling fidget spinners, right? And people want to buy it through your inbox, and maybe you've run a viral campaign and you've got 10,000 DMs. You're not going to be able to kind of handle that inbox of people trying to buy it
Mm.
on your personal DM. So Instagram's a great lead. I know, like, you're in the US. I'm currently in Dubai, and in the South Asian, the Middle Eastern market, WhatsApp is huge. I was just speaking to a friend who runs an e-commerce company, and he was just telling me the amount of commerce that's done in WhatsApp is incredible. And generally, they
Mm.
outsource it to kind of other people who, kind of do their customer service. But the thing is, these are people that aren't paid too well and aren't too sophisticated to represent their brands. There's a inconsistency in the quality of customer service you deliver. So WhatsApp is huge. If you can integrate a good generative AI chatbot, you get consistency across your customer service offering, and there's huge benefit because a lot of commerce is done within WhatsApp and then even Instagram now.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a huge bottleneck. I mean, when you're running a one or a few person entity, that's a lot of volume. These platforms, it's a beauty thing, the beautiful thing of it, right? These platforms offer you that access, that one to many kind of access. But then when the many all show up at the same time, it's really easy to overwhelm these small entities. And I think something worth noting for your audience is that. That's where like outsourcing is really kind of key. Outsourcing either for a project or for a service. When you don't have the internal assets or labor to handle something, you got to tap for some help. Otherwise, that bottleneck's going to stay a bottleneck. And that's really where these low code, no code kind of platforms really, really shine, because it brings the cost to achieve a solution way, way, way down for these companies. So someone who's their first year in business, maybe they're just kind of doing the solopreneur thing. They're coaching, training, mentoring on a social platform somewhere. Now they can suddenly afford this thing. They don't have to pay a team of developers, learn how to manage them, learn how to speak the language, keep that going for a while, or pay for a custom dev firm, which always is a big markup because developer talent costs a lot. But no, now they can I don't know, have it at 1/10 of the cost. Not to mention the cool factor where we can do a lot of stuff this year we just simply could not do last year. So you have the efficiency and increase in productivity. These are kind of inherently trading off, but then also you have the the fact that you can have a fairly close to human level kind of interaction, at least in a language sense and processing sense, around the clock for fairly cheap. Now you don't have to have the latest and greatest, you know, machine learning scientist on your payroll just to have a bot answer a product query at 2 a.m. You know, it's really powerful.
Ex- Exactly. It really unravels the game for SME businesses, to really have a compelling pitch.
Yeah,
It's super expensive to hire a machine learning engineer, a data scientist, but these low code, no code tools can get you almost just there, uh, you know, uh, which is quite impressive. And these tools are just getting better, quarter by quarter,
yeah,
year over year. They're just heading at a speed that's unfathomable for someone who's been in this space for a good amount of time. So you know you, so we are meeting because of the AAA. We met because of the AAA incubator. That Discord is awesome. I met a lot of really cool people on that Discord.
yeah,
The way
yeah.
it's run is super good. I wasn't really too invested in a lot of Discords. I was, a part of the AAA accelerator as well, which is kind of a paid wall as well. But I think there's immense value in the free page as well. So can you run us through kind of like just Discord in general and the opportunity with that, So maybe can you just like for people who may not know who Liam Otley is, there might be a bunch of people who don't. Can you say who Liam Otley is and how he's built his business and how he's leveraged Discord, to get this huge sort of fan following where he can really drive leads to a SaaS products and like kind of this new age of tech influencer essentially.
Yeah, it's a really interesting combination. I know I'm sure there's just been a whole bunch I've never even had exposure to of business-oriented, like high-tech business-oriented communities online. This is one of the first ones I've been engaged with so much anyway. And that's for a few key reasons. It's a pretty unique combination of interest and community and also business, and it's just kind of driving a lot of passion. It really started because Liam Otley, a New Zealander decided to get into some of these advantages that AI were offering. Some of these, how could you be watching any kind of news or tech content last fall and not have your interest highly spiked by OpenAI's announcements and then the ChatGPT 3.5 being released? And so he had some interest in all the space before then, but then in seeing all that, it really got him to put the kind of pedal to the metal. And so around the turn of the year, I believe, he started investing a lot of effort into an existing channel he had, kind of tooling it, refocusing it, and also kind of coining and establishing this whole kind of AAA, uh, uh, not brand, but industry, right? Business model. And so the uh, the process from there um, pretty much grew as you would expect anyways. His channel grew some after a few months, realized, hey, kind of need a place for folks to mingle and interact because there was demand. So he ended up jumping onto a Discord server and set it up as a community server, which means it's open. People can find it on the platform, which is really powerful because Discord offers some pretty unique things. And a lot of it's really, really tried and true. For example, there's been a lot of existing chat platforms and communication platforms going back to the late 80s, early 90s, that Discord's kind of extension of, IRC and some other forums. But they said, well, look, what was the problem with those? Well, it didn't grow. It didn't grow with the internet. You couldn't have multimedia. You couldn't have friends lists. You couldn't log in from anywhere. So Discord said, you know what? We're going to take the best things of yesteryear. We're going to build on all the new convenience features, and we're going to start rolling this out. So this started on Discord's part in 15 or 16, I want to say, and they've been pushing it a whole lot since. It's got huge traction with gamers at first, and more of a techie kind of online communities, but it's really been more and more convenient and more recognized as a less hindered version of Slack. So a lot of businesses are getting into it, and so with the various ways to tie in um, with the Discord API and some other convenience factors built in, it's been really attractive because of the amount of people already on the platform, the amount of engagement already there. The convenience factor is really, really, really high, and you don't have to worry about building out a website or managing a forum or anything like that. A lot of the infrastructure is kind of handled, so they're trying to polish it up and make it really, really, really attractive to businesses in general. And you see this essentially working. For example, Midjourney. A lot of folks probably have heard of Midjourney as well. Just to frame that, they're like one of the largest, one of the most prominent text to image generation platforms out there. They're completely integrated with Discord. If you don't have Discord, you've never used Midjourney. You can't use Midjourney without Discord, which I thought was a really, really bold choice. They did that and they onboarded, I don't know, 10 plus million people to Discord who had never joined or something like that. I saw an article or two about it at some point. I could be off on that, but essentially they onboarded what 20 something, around 20 million to their Discord, I think in total. Last time I checked a few months ago, it was around that, and a number of those are new users. Is the takeaway there. So you have this weird confluence of uh, 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 convenience, but also adoption. And so, Discord is kind of a really, really hot platform, essentially. I tried to touch on a couple of the answers there. I'm not sure if I strung them together in the best way. Did that make sense for you?
No, I think Discord is immensely valuable for businesses to get into. I'm not even sure how much money Liam's making off Discord just through the accelerator. The paid accelerator, but then the leverage that he has in terms of recruiting, all of these things. The moat that it gives you if you've built a successful Discord is insane. And yeah, I
Oh,
like
yeah.
that you I like that you mentioned Midjourney. I believe they are the largest Discord server.
Oh, they're
So I guess
definitely the
for people,
largest. Yeah. Yeah.
right? I guess for people who don't know Discord, basically it's just a chatting community. Like you have multiple basically chat profiles and stuff like that. So it kind of segregates conversations, and there's a lot of other things to it. But that's the quick over gist of Discord. But it is quite interesting. So I mean, logistically, even just thinking about like the community managers managing Midjourney's servers, like how many people do you think are like behind it? Because having 10 million people on a platform is a logistical nightmare.
So it's interesting. So I've done a lot of community building and running, and um, in various ways, in-person events, local communities, online, a whole variety. One thing I've noticed is that every audience, every community kind of gets an average, gets a norm. This is not going to be terribly surprising, but with that framing aside, um, some are much higher maintenance than others. For example, I was on a couple like game or even engineering focused Discord communities as on the moderation team, and there's a big difference between like anything involving. Like, it was an engineering game, even in this one context. You would have a lot of really, I mean, for lack of a better way to say it, uh, uh, um, really, really loud and emotional membership. But then in other cases, you really don't. And in the case of the AAA incubator, it's a pretty low moderation lift. The biggest thing what we regularly see is going to be some hacked or compromised accounts, some botnets that are dumping messages or Discord invites, things of that nature, which is something Discord has to handle. We can't do too much about. But then some servers with a more with less of a focus or more of a broad kind of general audience, not so business, not so money oriented, you typically see much more moderation needs. So, with that framing aside, I would actually expect Midjourney would need a ton of people. I don't know for sure. There's some automated tools you can prevent profanity if someone wants to just drop a bunch of slurs and certain kinds of incendiary speech. You can kind of stop that to an extent, but they're going to have a pretty decent team. And I would assume like everybody, it's I mean, maybe they could afford it in their case, but a lot of times you pick up volunteer moderators, people who are just kind of frequenting there in the community anyway, and you just give them some authority to say, like, hey, this person does know the rules. If they're telling you to behave, you ought to behave. And you usually kind of spread the labor costs a little bit that way. You usually have folks who care enough about a community to kind of say, hey, yeah, I'll holler at someone when I catch them breaking a rule kind of thing. I actually don't know if they do that over in Midjourney. To be fair, um, but at the same time, they would have to have at least, I don't know. I mean, at least a dozen to 20 people. I imagine you spend a lot of brain cells on a regular basis thinking about just how to keep the chaos wrangled in.
Right. I mean, and I think we've clearly established how important Discord is for kind of online businesses to leverage. So I think this question kind of pertains towards someone kind of trying to build a SaaS tool, like an AI SaaS tool, or just a SaaS tool in general.
Sure.
We've seen a lot of people. It is quite evident. A lot of companies are building discards. At what stage and at what point should you kind of have, I don't know, a chief of discard manager, or a chief of discard executive in your company? Sort of running your discard.
That's an excellent question, and it's hard to quantify, because again, every community is going to need various amounts of inputs. You definitely need a few people, more than one mind, I would say, thinking about how to lay things out just from the start. It's a pain to change things up when folks are already used to stuff, and it's a little more disruptive, a little more jarring. Also, just some product design wise, you don't want to take something away from someone. It's a little more triggering than it is to just give them something. So in general, you want to try to have a basic kind of framework and then try to expand or alter that as needed, kind of to solve problems related to growth. Because you don't have a crystal ball. At least mine's been in the shop for a while. Maybe one day I'll get it back, but without being able to predict the future, you can only do so much. So that balance there, I would kind of describe like that. Just trying to put a number to it would be a little misleading because again, sometimes you'll have higher maintenance or lower maintenance kind of stuff going on. But essentially, if like with anything in entrepreneurship, if you're finding that the time to manage something is starting to cause you to like work overtime, you're working extra long days, then it's probably time to delegate and defer that task. Even if the person that you delegate and defer to is only going to do it at maybe 80% or so of the quality, it still really mathematically kind of works out to start making that shift to having more staff to handle something, when it starts causing you to work overtime to address it basically. That's a really oversimplified rule of thumb there, but I think it's pretty applicable for when you delegate and defer, when you hire staff in pretty much any much of a context, you know.
Right. So, I'm sure you've had innumerable conversations and discussions with a wide variety of people from all different backgrounds and
Yeah,
all
yeah.
around the world on AI. Uh, what are some of the interesting AI tools that you're seeing out there? You know,
Mm, yeah, it's a wonderful question. It's tough too because no matter how much, even myself or anyone plugged in as plugged into a community as you can be, you can't catch it all. That's the humbling part. There are regularly times, even this week, where I've thought I've done research, I thought I've been fully up to date on something, and then a couple of days later, I chat with somebody like, "Hey, did you check out this thing? Wait, what thing?" And then it's this whole revelation of, wow, how did I just spend 4 hours researching and still not reach the bottom of the barrel, not actually exhaust all the news. And so with that humbling anecdote aside, there's definitely been a lot of things involving voice lately that have been a little bit surprising for me because you've seen this tease, it's coming. But there's been a lot of people stitching together, I should say better, hacking together voice-based solutions that are actually pretty impressive. We had a hackathon recently, and in just like 4 or 5 hours, actually twice in a row now, we've had teams that whip together a voice solution. In one case, it was basically uh, able to call and do like lead nurturing and lead gen, and have it be pretty instantaneous communication, all for something whipped together with some free kind of off the shelf solutions. So things like that, I
right.
think, are kind of the most exciting because then you have we're familiar this year with the text based capabilities, right? We know these language models can deal with a lot of text. So voice then kind of means, okay, now you can have like an AI virtual assistant that actually can, well, send an email or call a place or answer a call, or, it's kind of like it could be a really big force multiplier in the same way that low code, no code empowers, SMEs, SMBs to uh, be able to achieve what they couldn't achieve otherwise. It's that kind of thing. We're like, yeah, you could have a team of people, or for a lower price point, you can have this, solution that gets you maybe 80% of the benefit, but runs around the clock and is much cheaper to keep running. So stuff like that, I think, is really exciting because it's going to end up having a pretty immediate impact, I would think, across uh, across industries and markets.
Right. I think maybe people might have seen it. I've definitely seen it. Like, across Twitter, you see this sort of agent, trying to sell you a car, and it's basically an AI voice bot, and the latency is so minimal. Like, it's really tough to decipher if it's a human being or, or if it's an AI bot. Because I mean, today when you might call AT&T or any sort of customer service from a large company, you can go through like a whole speech, and it'll take some time and it'll give you something, but it's clear that it's you're talking to a bot.
Yeah.
It's crazy how quick that that differentiation of what's a human being and kind of what's a
Whew.
bot is getting indistinguishable.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
There,
so
I've seen a number of fun. Interestingly enough, on that, I've seen a number of like logic brain teasers that you can ask some of these systems, and at least um, there's no easy way for developers to teach them all those tricks and answers. So you can ask them about like I don't know, what was one of the funnier ones I've heard. What is yellow but smells like blue paint? You know, yellow paint.
mhm,
That's what's yellow and smells like blue paint. Paint smells like paint. AI doesn't know that. But you could teach it that one trick, and then it's like, okay, now you're in a bit of a cat and a mouse thing. But it's interesting because, yeah, it's almost like a sci-fi thing. You're having to give like a logic bomb to the evil, AI that's taking stuff over in order to kind of trip it up to then understand, okay, yeah, you're the bad one, or whatever the case may
right.
be.
Right. So we've talked about tools, like for the everyday person who might not potentially want to be starting an AI agency, what are some of the AI tools that you have come across or you personally use, that can drastically increase productivity? It's quite clear. ChatGPT, Bard, all these kind of chatbots are
Yeah,
a part of a lot of people's lives already. What are some other tools out there that you see are quite interesting where a normal day-to-day person can integrate and
absolutely.
be more efficient?
Yeah, so I'll think of an interesting one here. Sometimes something you do internally is far more intriguing than what you're actually trying to sell. For any of your, if any of your audience hasn't seen the history of how Slack started, that's definitely worth reading into. I don't want to dive on it too much. I just leave a little teaser with that. But Slack was accidental, just to cut to the chase there. I've seen a number of folks who are much more interested in Fireflies AI note taker, which is a transcription service that'll join into a call. So it's essentially this experience like this. You and I are sitting here. We have these two views, my view and your view, your camera as that is on the screen, and then a third person pops in, and you say to me, "Who is this? What is this?" I did invite a third person. I say, that's my Fireflies. That's my note taker. It just transcribes these all of our words and makes notes for me, and then summarizes into bullet points and objectives and action items and reminders and that kind of stuff. That's one that can be pretty impactful for a lot of folks, in a more regular kind of daily way. And so when I think of that, I then instantly kind of think the best answer to give you is that a lot of these chat solutions, like you said, Bard, ChatGPT, they can really help accelerate a lot of stuff you're going to do in a myriad of ways. An obvious, a pretty clear to explain example is going to be that like a language model, a chatbot is really just a connection. It's an interface between you and a whole bunch of humanities knowledge, right? It's like a personal concierge for humanities knowledge, and we can get to it in our pocket. So for the last 10, 20 years, it used to be, oh yeah, we have all of humanities knowledge in our pocket on a smartphone. Well, be that as it may, now we have a way to get to it 10 or 20 times more easily. And so that I think is a really powerful thing where, uh, it's there's a lot to consider with the implications to market and industry. But nonetheless, starting your web experience with if you're trying to research or look anything up or check anything, starting with a language model makes an awful lot of sense. And some of them are more or less connected to the internet. Bard is like online and can search products and stuff like that much more readily. Whereas OpenAI may be a little more maybe a little more reliable, a lot more reliable. But its data set's a little out of touch there. So it kind of depends on exactly what you're doing. But I use it for anything from I don't know, cooking, adjusting recipes. I mean, AI has helped me cook better. That one's humorous to me. Who would have thought that an AI would help you cook better in some sense? I've had help me with that a number of times. Or digesting communications. If someone says something I'm not too sure what they were trying to get at, I'll often run it through, especially when trying to help people online, or even talk to a relative in some cases. Take that text, put it into ChatGPT. Hey, I think they're talking about this. What do you think? Things like that can help a lot. Anytime you want to read an article, and now what I do, I go to an article, Control A, Control C on the keyboard, go back, which is to select all the text and then copy it, and then I'll go back to a language model, drop it in there. Now, instead of reading a 5 or 10 page article, I can now get some of the bullet points and then decide if I actually want to go and spend the time reading the whole thing. So it really accelerates a lot of content consumption as well, by being able to, um, I mean, quite literally turn many pages into just a few bullet points, and then dive in from there. I also do that with um, YouTube videos. Got a little tool. I don't have actually a link for it. It's an internal tool I made, but something that well, buddy of mine made. I'm using it and helping some. But a tool that will take a YouTube video and then break it into a mind map and a whole like lesson plan. So I can take a bunch of educational material and more rapidly consume that. Um, I know some of these examples are going to be more or less useful to the average person out there. So something I have found a little more run of the mill daily use in, um, identification of plants or something like that, right? The picture stuff that you can do with OpenAI, with DALI and all that's actually pretty helpful. There's a couple of times where I haven't known how to handle or treat or improve or fix or maintain something. Take a picture. Hey, what exactly is this? And what exactly are the proper steps to do X or Y with it? And so even weird things like that, where I never thought I'd have so much convenience, so much, utility, and just taking a picture and just identifying something. A number of times this has been plants, but I've done it with some random objects or random little fixtures and bits. I didn't know exactly what like, what model to look up of something. It's been helpful with that. So a whole wide number of ways. The challenge I think to put out for everybody is, okay, how much can you use it for on a daily basis? Almost kind of do yourself a favor. Almost treat it like a challenge, like a goofy comical self challenge. Can I use AI for this? Can I use AI for that? Can it speed up this thing? Can it speed up that thing? Um, there's all manner of things that I've thrown at it, and it's really been able to be helpful. Even like gathering thoughts sometimes. You can, with the voice input, I can ramble on some thoughts and have it help me process. I don't actually have to take the time of like typing it out, formatting, arranging my thoughts so much. I can just double check to make sure that I didn't leave anything out. Okay, cool. It covered everything. And now it's like logically arranged and presentable in some way. And you could do that whether you're talking to, whether it's like an interpersonal relation or whether it's like a work communication. That one's a pretty kind of universal one there. I can keep going with all kinds of ideas. I'm just going to pause for a minute. So I know I got a little long-winded there. But there's all manner of things you can use this stuff for, and it's not going away. So we may as well start getting familiarity with it and trying to use it for all kinds of things, even if it's just adjusting your next cookie recipe. It's still worthwhile to start engaging with this tech. It's kind of like learning how to use a phone or learning how to use a keyboard. It's going to be useful knowledge for the rest of our lives. It's not going to change anytime soon at this point.
I agree. I mean, I think the value proposition of these tools are probably like infinity plus one.
Ooh,
It's just a matter of
yes,
how many prompts are you willing to type in a day, and kind
yeah.
of experiment. And I love the fact that you kind of mentioned you've used it to identify plant species. That's quite interesting.
Oh yeah.
Oftentimes when when I was in the US, when I was would go in the middle of the woods, ponder about the existence, the purpose of life, and you would see this interesting plant species. You wouldn't know sort of what it was. Ideally you would have to post it on a social media, and hopefully someone would chime in. But you could just basically like post it at GPT kind of thing, and kind of get the answer instantaneously. I was just even thinking about like tour guides. Whenever you travel to, I don't know, an isolated location or something like that, you might have some banners, or you might have some
Mm.
monument or some old building or something like that, and be like, hey, what does this signify? And
Ooh,
like
that's a
it
good
really
one.
can be a great
Yeah.
travel companion. So yeah, I mean,
Oh,
it's
I
it's
love that
something
one.
with
Yeah.
right. It's something with infinite potential. I think I don't know if you're familiar with this book. Well, you might be. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, right?
Oh yeah.
Basically, the book is about it's a philosophical book. I mean, I think we all go through this existential question: what's the meaning of life, right? And in that book, basically, they build a supercomputer, and here it's like the meaning of life is like 42, right? Like, but the whole question is not the answer; it's about the question that you ask. That's what makes life kind of interesting, right? The questions you ask, the answers,
Right. Yeah.
the second thought of it. I guess on that note, I think this was an amazing podcast, Keith. You shared invaluable advice and sort of gone through the AI automation landscape, and really great recommendations on how to leverage generative AI on a day-to-day basis. Any closing remarks?
Uh, Nothing other than kind of reaffirming the day to day life concept there, right? Where it's going to be a hugely impactful thing in a ton of ways, and a lot of these have not been so tangible. They've not been so directly accessible by the average person. Identifying cancers. Hey, that's great. Trying to solve cancer, modern medicine, predictive preventative care. All these things are wonderful. They do have impact, but it's not something that like changes how you go about dinner tonight, and where we're at with these a lot of these language models, a lot of these tools, all these solutions, um, a lot of these conveniences is that they really can have that kind of daily impact to the average person. And it really is a way that you make sure you stay up on this stuff and stay kind of ahead of the curve, with the trend, and not kind of caught off guard trying to react to some kind of development in the AI space. You stay on top of that by staying engaged, by not fearing these things, but by kind of embracing and getting to know them and figuring out, okay, well, what's the best way to get it to work for me? And it starts by playing around with this stuff. It doesn't have to be for a super serious reason. It just starts by deciding, hey, you know what? I just checked out this podcast. Think the guys are right. I should play around with this technology. And you go fire up one of these language models, fire up one of these websites, and start seeing how it can help you. Start seeing how you can figure out different ways to use it daily. Because it's gonna help you do more, help you achieve more, help you be more informed. And nothing's perfect. There'll be some downsides to AI. Everything gets used and abused, but of course, you should definitely capitalize on the good that you can realize every single day. So that's kind of the parting note that I think I have there.
Right. Awesome. Thank you so much, Keith. I guess the last question, how could people get in contact with you? What are the best ways for people who, want to get into
Sure, sure. So the I don't have great avenues. I don't really actually do social media like that. I have a information security background, and so I kind of keep everything pretty low key there. Um, if you do want to try to get a hold of me, I would advise you to seek out Liam Motley's content, join the Discord. Just join the Discord directly. You'll find it associated, linked with his content. That'd be one of the best ways to kind of engage with me. So I'm putting a lot of effort into trying to build and put a lot of love into that community there. So it might be the easiest way to go about it, which would involve getting on Discord. So
Awesome. So I'll put the links to Liam's AI accelerator below, and Keith, I'll put your link as well. Because I think people might be
absolutely.
interested in having a conversation with you. So thank you so much, Keith. Thank you everyone for watching another episode of Destination Big Leagues. Cheers.